Let's talk about decision making today. This is Dr. Ron Kaiser, and want to talk about something that we all face and a lot of times many of us fear. Decision making is something that's very difficult to do for many people, even though we really need to make decisions to move forward with our lives. First, we should recognize that the way that we function in the world is based on decisions that other people made for us. The decision that we must go to school up to a certain age, that we must stop at the stop sign if we're driving, the decision of what time we get to work, and so on. Those are decisions that tend to involve us, pretty significantly, but tend to be made by others. Very often, the decisions that we make for ourselves tend to be ones that are relatively inconsequential. So whether I chose to wear this shirt today, or if I chose to wear another one, it wouldn't make a whole lot of difference to most of the rest of the world. And probably shouldn't make a whole lot of difference to me either, unless I'm wearing a shirt that is so objectionable when I'm doing a Facebook Live or any kind of presentation. But for many of us, when we think about the decisions that we have to make, we tend to be hesitant for a couple of reasons. One of which is we tend to blur the lines between really, really important, earth-shaking decisions, of which there are very few, and decisions that where the consequences aren't tremendously great, whatever decision we may make, so that it becomes important as we move forward to not overvalue each individual decision. If we're deciding on a career choice, that's obviously more important than deciding what we're going to wear in the morning, unless we're going to a job interview relative to our career choice. If we're making a decision on who we're going to marry, assuming that our intended spouse has the same idea in mind, that's a more consequential decision than what restaurant we're going to go to for dinner. So that it becomes very important to, number one, not blur the lines between the decision making, the types of decisions that we have to make. And it also is very important to recognize that while decisions have consequences, we can often change the results, go back to the original format, and make a different decision. In other words, most decisions are not that hard. There are people who are paid lots of money, and most people in executive positions very often got that way because of their skill in making decisions. Do they always make the right one? No. Otherwise, all businesses would be successful all the time. There wouldn't be disgruntled employees. There wouldn't be financial issues. Decisions lead to consequences, and those consequences can be very good or quite bad, but rarely can they not be altered in the future. One of the things that immobilizes people is the tendency to view a decision as being more permanent than it is. And so my appeal to you today is, when you face a decision, evaluate it. How important is it? How consequential is it both to you and to others? Are you willing to handle the consequences of making the wrong decision, or at least the decision that proves to not be right? If you recognize this, the consequences may be something that you can handle and would permit personal growth an advancement if it comes out right. Sometimes taking the risk of making a wrong decision can lead to making a right one, or to one that is not, you know, pretty neutral. Not every decision has an obvious best and worst answer, and if we recognize this, it makes life a whole lot easier. Decision making can immobilize people, and the immobilization, the overanalysis, oftentimes can be worse than any decision, than the outcome of any decision that you may make. So, what I would like to encourage you today to do is, when faced with the next decision, again, remember how consequential is it? What are the consequences of it not turning out the way that you might like? And what are the chances of repairing it if that's the case? Also, keep in mind that very often you can ask for advice, even if ultimately the decision making is in your hands. If you're feeling tied up in knots about a decision, anything that will help untie those knots is better than staying stuck, and that includes asking for advice. So decision making is hard, but it gets easier the more that you do it, and the more that you recognize that not all decisions can lead to dire consequences if you get it wrong. This doesn't mean they should be taken lightly, at least the important decisions, but it does mean that if you can isolate the important ones from the less important ones, you're going to spend less time overthinking, and probably you're probably going to be much more likely to make the correct decision. Decision making gets easier as you make more of them and recognize what the consequences are, which often are, whatever they are not as bad as staying stuck. So I hope you'll give that some thought as you move forward into the next phases of your life. You're always going to be faced with decisions, some minor, some more important. The key thing is, don't overanalyze, don't get stuck. You don't necessarily have to just trust your gut, but you do have to get unstuck. And I hope some of this information will help you to do so.